Wednesday and the all-important announcement that will be released impacting all of us and our money. This is going to be an interesting announcement as it will be the first of this kind for 2025, and we may start to see these numbers moving significantly higher based on some new policies. I have all the details for you and what we can expect on Wednesday. Let's get into it and talk through the details. All right, so we're still relatively early on in 2025, February here, but we're also starting to get some January numbers that are rolling out now, and that's exactly what we're going to be getting here on Wednesday. Now, this is going to be very interesting because this is going to be the CPI, Consumer Price Index, otherwise known as the inflation report. Now, why am I making such a big deal about this? Here's why I'm making such a big deal and why this is going to be very influential going forward. Remember, we topped out with very, very high inflation back in June of 2022 at 9.1%. Since then, we've been very, very, very slowly moving lower, right? That was nearly 3 years ago now. Actually, to be fair, it was 2.5 years ago now that we saw that inflation top out, and we're still dealing with inflation as of right now. However, this number that we're going to be getting on Wednesday morning is going to be January's of obviously this year of inflation, right? So that's why this is going to be important because this will be the first inflation reading for 2025. Now, why is that important? Because generally November and December are typically inflationary times of year because a lot of people are out there spending money on goods and services. Typically, people are spending a whole lot more money than they generally would be, any other time of year, because we basically get the license to spend, right around Thanksgiving time when, we start to get deals and stuff like that. People are out there spending all kinds of money, and that typically drives a little bit of inflation. However, that usually phases out pretty much right after the holidays. We roll over to the new year, and all the spending basically just drops off significantly. In fact, the returns start coming in. So this is actually less inflationary, right? So usually by the time that we get to January, we're not seeing nearly all the inflation that we were in November and December because people are not spending. January typically is a very muted time of year. People are like trying to recover from November, December. People are, sitting back, licking their wounds because it's like, man, that was a tough time. The last couple months of the last year were really tough. And a lot of people really start to ease back starting in January. And we're kind of off to a new start here, and people are like, hey, got my new budget, and, I'm going to really hammer down this year on my finances, whatever. So we generally see lower inflation in January. However, we're starting to get some new policies here, and that could ramp inflation back up. Based on everything that everybody's talking about, we may start to see a massive move higher in inflation yet again. Why? This all tariff talk, right? All the tariff talk we've been hearing about for a while now, suggesting that depending on what these tariffs look like, at what percentages and how long they go on for, and will other countries retaliate against us, and the whole list of situations. But remember, a tariff is basically just a tax to import. I mean, that's literally what it is. It's a tax to basically import into a country. The money goes to the government, and then whatever else, you know what I mean? So the expense of those tariffs actually get passed on to the consumers. At the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to pay for that. I mean, no matter how you look at it, we're going to pay for that, whether it's all of it or a portion of it. It comes back on the consumer because now we got to pay more to get those, those goods, whatever, those products into the country. And then the retailers, just raise prices. And then ultimately, what does that translate into? It translates into you and me and everybody else out there, the consumers paying a little bit more for the goods on the store shelves because now the prices are higher, right? I mean, it's just basic logic. We understand this. So anyway, this may be a little bit of a muted number, as in the inflation number may come in a little bit lower, but going forward, we may start to see that this inflation starts ticking back up again. Again, there's a lot of factors here at play, but this is going to be a very important number going forward. Now remember, just the other day, we had the meeting out of the Federal Reserve, right? They meet once every 6 weeks. Well, they'll be meeting again here in about, 4 weeks or so, give or take a little bit. Yeah, they'll be meeting again in about 4 weeks here, and middle of March. And that's going to be another very influential number that they're going to take into consideration is all of these inflation data points. Remember, they don't just look at one inflation data point and be like, oh, we got to cut rates significantly or we got to raise or whatever their situation is. They look at the entire trend of where inflation is going, right? They look at the whole last several months all in a trend and see, okay, where is inflation trending, right? That's kind of the big picture here. If we start to see inflation possibly bottom out in January and then new policies come in and possibly tariffs added more aggressively, things like this, and we start to see prices moving higher, well, then we may see potentially a bottoming of inflation in January. Again, we don't know the details of that yet. It's still way too early to know. But based on what's being said and what's being floated, these ideas, we may start to see this. And if inflation starts ticking back higher again, January possibly could be one of these pivot point lows where inflation goes down, it pivots in January, possibly, and then starts to move higher, as a result of some of these changes that are coming out. So at the end of the day, what does this mean for you and me and all of our money and our benefits, things like this? Well, I think we all have a first-class lesson on inflation here over the last couple of years. It's not that hard to figure out. We're all experts on inflation these days, right? Yeah, exactly. What does it do? Well, raises prices on virtually everything. That just means more money going to the stores. Here's the thing. If they're paying more for their product too, right? That's why it's costing us more. And then they translate all of those price increases back to us. They transfer that to us. We're the ones that pay it at the end of the day, and we're the end consumer. Therefore, unfortunately, we don't get to pass it on to anybody else and get our expenses covered, but rather we are the end consumer. Therefore, we get to pay all of that overhead. So that's how it impacts all of us, right? And again, I don't need to sit here and hammer down on inflation forever because you get it. We've all been dealing with it for the last, 3 years now? Actually, more than that. Yeah, it started ticking up in early 2021. So from then until now, we're talking about 4 years or so, give or take a little bit, since we've been dealing with all this inflation. So there you go. But anyway, this is going to be another very important report here, and we'll have to see what happens. And again, this is going to help determine what the Federal Reserve does going forward. If inflation starts going back up, they may hold steady and say, we're not going to cut again. We're going to pause for a while and just see what happens. If inflation goes down significantly, they might cut again. We'll just have to see what happens here. But again, all of this is highly correlated. The inflation reports that we get out once per month, generally around the middle of the month. The job numbers that we get out once per month. Again, the first Friday of every month, we get those numbers out. We just got those, by the way. As well as the announcements out of the Federal Reserve every 6 weeks when they wrap up their FOMC meeting. It's all very highly correlated. And again, you might be thinking, I don't care at all about this stuff. What does this have to do with me and my money? It actually has a lot to do with it because at the end of the day, all of these economic data points determine what the Federal Reserve is going to do with interest rates, and interest rates impact all of us to some degree. If you're floating balances on credit cards, if you have any kind of revolving debt, anything like that has an interest rate attached to it and an adjustable interest rate, we're all paying for that. So that's what I mean by all this. And at the end of the day too as well, remember, I've said this so many times before in other videos, it's all predicated on the economy. The economy is going to be the one that suffers or booms as a result of all of these reports coming out and whatever the Federal Reserve does. If the Federal Reserve keeps cutting interest rates aggressively, then guess what? The economy will get healthier. If the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, guess what? The economy doesn't do so great. So at the end of the day, it does impact all of us significantly. And if we drop into a major recession, major economic contraction, and we start to see this thing slowing down further, what will they do then? They will print money. They will cause more inflation. They will push money out in the form of stimulus. And again, we'll go down that path again. It's all highly correlated. That's what it means. So anyway, I hope this helps you to some degree. And again, I'm here for you in any way that I possibly can be. I'll look through the report when we get it out. I'm sure we'll see another report that comes out and says, look, inflation has gone down so much. This is the lowest number we've seen in 4 years, or some crazy claims like that. And then when we look into the report, we're going to see the same thing we've seen for all these years now. Oh, you're right. The headline number went down because airline tickets went down. Hotel prices went down. Used car prices went down. But then if you look at food and energy and utilities and shelter, oh, by golly gee, those went up another 0.2%, 0.3%. The necessities keep going up. Meanwhile, the discretionaries like hotel rooms and flights and other fun stuff like that, those go down. Right? That's just what we continue to see. So anyway, I'll bring you the information as we get that report right away on Wednesday morning. I hope this helps you. Again, please subscribe down below. Totally free to do so. Big subscribe button waiting for you. Thanks again. I really appreciate you. I just want to do what I can to keep you informed right now. I know it's such a tough time out there. There's so much to watch, which is why I'm making all these videos and bringing it to your attention and just what I feel is important to you, your money, your benefits, your finances going forward. Again, just want to do what I can for you, okay? Anyway, subscribe down below. Again, totally free to do so. Check out the other videos here on the channel, the thousands and thousands in the video library. The popular videos I've hand-selected for you down below in the description or the top of the comment section. And right now showing up on your screen as well, you'll see some videos there. Check those out. Otherwise, just have a nice day. I'll catch you again in just a minute.